Hi, everybody, and welcome to Pomeroy Art Academy's Breakfast Club. I'm your host and teacher, John Pomeroy, and I want to welcome you to our club. We're going to talk about dialogue phrasing. And dialogue phrasing are the points of pattern in between expressions of words, and how to make that as simple as possible. Now, this was passed on to me by one of the great Nine Old Men animators, Ollie Johnston, and I was doing a scene, I remember, of Penny from Walt Disney's Rescuers. And I got it very complicated. The pattern of movement was just a little bit too much for the amount of dialogue there was. So one of the first rules in dialogue phrasing is think simple. And that not only with the entire body and gesturing, but also with the face and with the mouth. So I'm going to try to give you a quick little run through about phrasing, how you can get that to happen. Imagine if I were animating a scene where the dialogue was simply the phrase, "What about you?" So I would do a gesture like that. What about you? What about you? Now, using our own little character, Tig, let me start out. If I had a default position where he is acknowledging another character, and I'm just going to work real rough here. Eyes, nose, and I'm going to put a kind of a questioning look as he's looking off stage to another character. And he's going to start to form the word what, which will be kind of a pucker. And his hands, his little paws, are coming up, getting ready to gesture. And when I'm roughing out a scene like this, it's usually like this, if not rougher. I'm just trying to get an impression. I'm going to call this drawing one. That'll just kind of be a placeholder drawing. Now, he comes forward. This will be my final pose. And I'll have his hands stretched out. His head turned up, looking at the character that he's trying to address. I'm going to call this drawing 3 just as a placeholder. And once again, this will be what about you, where his lips are pooched forward. Get his arm. His hands are opened. So the gesture is one of not pleading, but he's asking for assistance. What about you? So there'll be little fingers. Hair on the top of his head. Now, one thing I didn't consider, I was thinking about this as I just began laying pencil to paper, is I could have, I'm doing a very lateral action, I could have gone into the camera, but I think I'll just keep it like this for simplicity's sake, because I don't want to get too complicated here. I just want to talk about basic phrasing. His leg, get part of his leg there. So we have this head and we have this head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower his head coming up into this. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to call this tentatively drawing number 2. We're going to lower his head as he's coming up. I'm going to scrunch the body down a little bit. So we're going to buckle the body in as he comes forward. And I'm going to bring the shoulders up. And I'm going to torque the fist inward in anticipation for this gesture. Same on the other side. You can see the little pause and see his arm turning inward. And then his head is going to dip down. Everything is almost like a squash in a way. Everything is contracted and everything is brought inward in preparation for the outward movements that's going to happen ultimately. So here, this would be the word what about you. So he's dipping down. His ears would come forward. We see his head dip down. I think maybe even scrunching his eyebrows in. You would barely see his eyes. They would be dipped way down. Lowering his muzzle. Here's his little tummy. Very rough. And so there we've got the three drawings that express this action and this sentence. What about you? What about you? And the phrasing part comes in also when you time this out, because if I go from drawing 1 to drawing 2, I would want to slow out of this so that you would really see this drawing for a moment. So your breakdown would be around halfway between drawing 1 and 2, if you were to call that a 1C, and then the other drawings would be slowing out of 1. That would be 1B and any other extra drawings there. Slowing out of that, lowering his head, going from 2 to 3 would be, I would make the timing on this, I would put a drawing on 1s right about here. I would call that 2A. And then I would, on 3rds, come into drawing number 3 with 2B, and then slowing in with 2C, 2D, and however many other drawings. So the phrasing part is that we go through this lower part kind of quickly. We accelerate and then come into this ending pose. What about you? And the timing will affect how the paws open up, the eyes open up. We may even want to go beyond this extreme, overshoot, and then settle into this drawing number 3. So that'll give you some pointers, some ideas about dialogue phrasing. And also, as far as the mouths go, the phrasing on that, what about you? We do a pucker mouth for the what, the W on what, and then he opens it ever so slightly. We see his little teeth. What? Get his nose in there. What? And then a closed mouth. You know what I'm thinking? What about? He's going to open his mouth right away, and I think he wouldn't close his mouth all the way. He would leave it partially open, and his tongue would hit the back of his teeth. What about you? What? And then he would open his mouth again. And then he would go to a B sound. What about? He would start to bring, he would pucker his mouth, close his lips. What about? This would be an O sound. About. I would actually open that up a little bit more. And that would go about you. That would go right into the pucker. What? What about you? So that'll give you some pointers, some ideas on body phrasing and dialogue mouth movement phrasing. The main thing is to keep it simple. That's the first prominent rule. Keeping it simple. With the mouth, what about you? And with the dialogue and the phrasing, the arm movements. Keep it simple.